things that he tends to talk about is setting yourself up to get as much out of a particular position as possible. What he says is like, he says 3-point catch all the time, and that's his 3-point catch all for everything, it seems. But we'll start with something.
It's another form of sanction.
Yeah. Well, that's what he says too, so. We'll start with something basic. You're holding a camera. We'll do 2 punches there. So just slightly different than I planned to, but so on the second punch is coming here, doing one take up from the first punch. You check to the outside. Okay. That part's not necessarily. So we'll start with that. Any questions? I will take you up on the first punch of a 2-punch set. The reason why I'm doing it on the second punch here is because a lot of times if you do it from the basic, if you just like the standard, like, I'm gonna throw you like this, is that you get super open if you get punched. And the reason why I'm doing it off the second punch here is because, off of the first punch in direction of the second punch. It's because there's a certain amount of timing to it to not get hit by it. Granted, you need to pay attention, because if you're too late or too slow, there's an area there to get hit. So you need to pay attention to that. So we're going to stick with this for a little while longer, because if you move back, for example, you're just stepping back into the same position where you're going to go anyway. So don't do that. Move away. Also because it makes, since they're moving towards you and you're moving away, it makes almost like you hit harder because you're, going the opposite direction. So just with that in mind, go for a little while longer and then we'll move on. So yeah, move towards him but away from him. Don't run into him. Use common sense. But there's something that needs to be said about maybe not necessarily in this position, but a lot of people get really concerned about whether or not they can get hit. And that situation I think comes up a lot, but you also need to understand that if they can hit you in a particular situation, is it going to actually cause issues for you? Like, say if we were going through this, and I'm really close to him and he tries to hit me, yeah, he might hit me, but it's like playing chess. If he takes a couple hairs off of your head and you break his wrist, you come out in the net positive there. But to move on, this time, same thing. Move to the other one. You're a little tall, so it might actually change a little bit. That's another thing too. So over here, we're still working with the elbow here. The way Nagase-sensei tends to kind of categorize things, and it's the same way that we do it here, is that if it rotates something at all, it ends up turning into about the same thing. The thing that changes it, and I'll explain it, is whether or not you're on the inside or outside. So this still hurts the elbow in the same way that, say, Nagase-sensei might, but it changes the outcome based on where you are. But this time we're going to be working towards the outside. And that can change in a couple different ways. So yeah, work with that. This time we're moving to the outside and going to the second punch's elbow. One more time, please. This is changing a little bit, but this is still the same idea. Height changes. Another thing that he says is that you can't really replicate the same thing each time. Is that good enough? Or should I do it again? Okay. Yeah, try that. That's really good. On to the next. Or on to the combination of two things. I'm going to use someone more closer to my height. So it's the same sequence setup, and you're still moving to the outside. And this is where Nagase-sensei would point out, this is Ichimongi. And then Well, here's a little bit of it. And as you can see, it's a combination of both. That. There. Let me get to it. I'm talking too much. Let me just do it a couple times. You're interesting one. So what I was talking about initially was the combination of two things, or setting yourself into a position to get as much as you can. So in an ideal world, I would be getting the two things that I demonstrated earlier at one time. And here is another example of the three-point catch thing that he's always talking about, which is my position here on the hand, here on this hand, checking to see what this hand is doing with my foot. Which is lucky, because I don't think that usually happens. So if I was ideally in this situation, I would have this hand caught while also applying torque under the elbow here. The reason why you would want more than one thing there is that if you don't have one thing, if I go here and I flub it somehow, it's that I have nothing at that point. So all that work that I have building up to there is now gone. So in order to have, maximum chance of survival, we come here and see if I lose this hand, if it slips out, or he pulls it back for some reason. It doesn't really matter. I still have something else. And it's applying the same problems to him. So yeah, what you're doing here, I'll forget to explain what I'm doing. So, same thing, moving out and checking these back. That is rudimentarily what you're doing. And that's really all you really need to think about. From here you can do a whole lot of other things. You can take the elbow, it's still looking through here, but you're still on the outside at that point. Yeah. Or, if you take this and somehow lose this, you now have this. It's a combination of the two things that we're doing here. And then, what you might say there is, you need to be trained to a point where you're not having to think about that kind of thing. You're moving in a way to set up as much as possible. Whether or not you get that doesn't really matter. That changed completely. It turned to something going through the elbow. Which I'm not showing off, that's just what happened. And through training, you begin to understand that kind of thing. That, I think, should be obvious. Practicing more means you get better at something. So, anyway, one more time. To the outside. Move across. Because if you're here and you're trying to drag this, that's not really something that would happen. Like they would resist or it wouldn't happen at all. So move yourself to a better position. And whether or not you get everything you need isn't really relevant. If you do, that's great. But if you get one, say this elbow or this hand, that's enough. But if you get both, how could that be bad? Anyway, try it.
You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Oh God.
If you look at the four sides of a box, this is probably in like the upper left. So there's, to counteract everything I just said there, I think the way training, at least in Nagase goes, is like what he's showing is more representative of a completely ideal situation. And he acknowledges the fact that that most likely won't happen. Like you can train up to like, being able to do this kind of thing all the time and then strive for that. But I think the important part is the understanding that the likelihood of me being able to break your elbow and your wrist at the same time is like, I would have to just get lucky. Anybody would just have to get lucky. So let's drop back to a point that was actually made earlier in class. If I borrow you. Table setup. We're going to be doing the same thing. Yeah. So when you're here, taking all this stuff, like you can use both hands, but ideally you can just use one here, and you get both still to free up your access to what Nagase-sensei would say is a sword or something. But really, in actuality, it could be anything, like a pen in your shirt pocket or something. And this can be represented in any number of ways. That's something that he likes to do, because he likes the representation of crosses, because that means that things won't slip, which is largely right. But it could be here, it could be here still. Well, that came apart, but that really doesn't matter. You're trying to do the most amount of damage to him with the least amount of involvement, and also without grabbing onto things as possible. So you can see here that, like, I'm not grabbing here and then grabbing here and then pulling this over, because largely we're in the same position at this point. And if I grab on, this is the only thing that I can do. So if I have my hands open and him in a better position, I can freely transition hands to access something that I may have. This was done in a clenched position, but you know, if you have a firearm or a knife, my knife would be on this side, you can get to it. But if not, you have two hands. With that hand, you just like whack it. So yeah, try to do it with, try to get to a point where you can use one hand. But try to not grab, that's the big one. And also you have your knees. Thank you. Another thing that he says is to walk a lot too. None of this, like, I think a lot of people would get this idea wrong. I'm just gonna vomit information until things happen. Here we go. There's a lot of people, like, when they hear walk, they're like, oh, they can do whatever they want, and like, oh, I have all the time in the world. No, that's dumb. There's timing in this kind of thing, obviously. And this would be quick. It's not quick because you have to see what's going on. Geez, me just saying things makes it hard to remember what I said. The goal of this right now is to work to where you can get this with one hand, I think. So, one more time. Same thing. Block. Here. Check. But don't grab. And bring it over. I'm actually taking him in a weird direction. I don't really like this, so I would change. But I still have both hands covered. Yeah, so try that. Or keep that in mind. Do the same thing, but keep that in mind. And if something changes, it changes. Yeah. Actually, hold on. I want to point something out first. Actually, something that you did that I thought was much better than what I was doing. So initially, I was blocking like this, which is fine. He went this way, which already set this up. The handle's over there, which makes things easier. It actually makes taking this easier too. So from here, you can also go this way, which is what we were doing. But he tried this thing, and I'm not exactly sure if I can get it. He brought this around here, and he got it here. So apparently I got it. And from here, you can switch it. It's all about the switch speed. The thing that I have trouble with this is the amount of time this appears to take. Here I kind of messed it up, but I have it stuck on me, which is okay. This thing's really different. Hey, we'll see what happens. But the same thing with the other one too. And I think this kind of gets wrapped up in the whole idea of being able to present something idyllic. Because this is like a moment here. Like, in a realistic fight, I don't think I would have the option to just like, wait and switch. So that's something that I'm working on. Trying to figure out, one, if you can do that, in the situation. Or if I'm just being given like a clump of information that I can take apart in a more chaotic scenario. I don't know yet. So, anyway.
Would it be kind of like you could have this option or this option or this
That's
option
what it
rather
is.
than you're going in all three, you pick from A, B, or C?
Like what he says is like if you can get them, like that's great. That's within Sanshin or 3-point catch or whatever. 3 is good, 2 is good, and 1 is good. 4 and 5 is even better. So it's like a whole spectrum of things. But what he's cautioning against there is that if you work towards one thing and that goes away, then you don't have anything at all. You don't have anything to fall back to. So that's why we're here doing this. It's more of an idea. And I've also forgotten to do the thing that I praised earlier. And then, you know, another thing that he likes to point out is like oftentimes when people roll is the best time to hit. So, I'm going on a tangent. I think there's a differentiation between the way Japanese tend to think about violence and the way Americans do. Obviously. You can get away with more here. In Japan, if you're in an altercation, you both get in trouble. Usually. Unless it's like clearly something, you know, like you're protecting something. And it has to be like 100% certain. So, and I think something that Nagase-sensei tends to lend to that idea is, one, his hands are down. He's not fighting. He's essentially just receiving things. So like, the damage that gets caused to whoever this may be is caused because of what they're doing, not what I or anybody else would be doing to them. So me like dropping his hand and rocking the hell out of him works. It works even more here. It works, you know, on a physiological level, it works the exact same way wherever you are. But as soon as that hit lands, or as soon as you even give the idea that you're fighting, you could be very much more in the wrong in Japan than you are here. I say that because, one, people don't tend to think about that. And I think that lends more towards like the artistic side of why Japan trains the way they do. But it's, I mean, I could just be like way off. But, and I think it's so like ingrained that no one is really recognizing it. That was something that I kind of found, you know, while I was here. Because like the way you could go about something, say, America, and granted, this is something that we have done at Nagase Dojo, so I might just be a huge hypocrite. Is way more like on it, and way more like I'm gonna beat this shit out of you kind of thing. So there's that idea, which what I just did, and then there's like more of the Japanese way of doing it. It's just keeping the fist there and having them run into it. I didn't hit him, he hit himself on me. I was just there. I was getting out of the way. That way, it's an accident. Anyway, to go back to what we were doing. Sorry, let me do this right. Get it onto your head. That opens up another hand to do more damage sneakily. Or actually, no, it gives him more of an opportunity to cause more damage to himself. So yeah. Try that. It's the exact same setup, but instead of taking it across, just bring it around onto the head. That's it. So we're doing the same thing, but we're just adding more to it. I mean, one more argument that this is always the same thing. I know someone down the road who would say it's all the same thing. So I said earlier, walking. And a lot of people think like you can just move around a guy. It's not really that. Oh, okay. So walking. Well, walking actually indicates your ability to, kick. Because what is walking but kicking? And we were talking earlier about the time it takes to move towards things. And striking, the way Nagase says it, because it just buys you more time. Depending on how hard you hit. All right, this has changed. Again, to that thing that happened earlier. Wow. So, you can put strikes in. I have no idea what I just did there. Anyway, wow. And soft stuff, like striking almost, it's kind of counteracting what I said earlier about it, things happening by accident. I don't know. Rocks get thrown in accidents. It softens them up and buys you more time. It also distracts them from other things. So, as we move here, let's set you up for a kick. Which loosens things up a little bit. I don't think I'm in a position here where this will really work all that well. Yeah. But my leg's in another place. So, and I actually have another thing here. So, that treads the realm of personally speaking, that treads the realm of this is a dojo so I can do those kinds of things. And that's something that people need to take care or be careful of. So let's see if I can do this right this time. Here. Oh, we need time. Bam. Now that he's in a position of, compromise, you can move slower. Because if he tries to stand up here, sorry, he tried to stand up. You can get other things. And then there's a whole finish your technique, oh, okay. Yeah, so it's striking. Generally speaking, if you can do it, it's probably for the best. That's a glossing statement. So ignore it for the most part. Anyway, if it's there though, it's a good idea. Especially for these long transition points. Oh, there's a kick, bam. Take it. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Oh. Throw some kicks in there. It'll buy you some time. That was a long, drawn-out way of saying, kick him in the leg. Go for it. Kind of. He's not really trying to, promote his dojo as an international container dojo. It's just he's trying to get, he's teaching at Hombu now. So he's definitely trying to get the Nagase brand out there. And it's a pretty good brand. Final thoughts. Whenever I ask him what he's trying to teach, it's always it's definitely not techniques. If you told him he teaches techniques, he'd probably laugh at you. He's more trying to teach an idea, and what he calls the Japanese samurai spirit, which is, I think, what we were talking about earlier. That's it for now, I guess. Nothing profound. Keep training. He did say, actually, you were talking about having an arsenal. He calls it data. It's the same, he calls himself a programmer, and he calls what he gets from training data, or input. So then he can accidentally do that to people who dare cross him. That's it. I have nothing else to say for now. So, thanks.